City and Leipzig next. This is a 4 p.m. Another 4 p.m. matchup on Tuesday. City's minus 250 at home. Leipzig plus 650 on the road. The draw is plus 425. 1-1 on aggregate. City is still a minus 550 favorite to get through. Leipzig plus 350. If you're a regular listener, you know that the three of us, well, at least BJ and I, Anthony, I don't know if you mustered up the courage to get it on the Leipzig long shot to win this Champions League, but
I did not muster the courage.
you're still there. You still can get a big number here on Leipzig.
I can still get the same. It's still probably the same number, right?
Yeah.
Side note, Michael, I bet, probably in the beginning of when the draw came out, I bet Leipzig to advance at plus 440, and they're sitting to advance at plus 440 right now. So great bet by me, and everybody else can still get in on that.
Yeah, there you go. Great bet.
Great bet.
That's what you want to see. You want to see absolutely no movement in either direction. That's how it's done, baby.
Better than it being plus 600.
That's true.
Amen.
Could be worse.
This is a CLV podcast, so
it could be worse.
Well, it was plus 430, so I was about to tweet something out, and then I went back to look, and it was plus 440. So I was like, okay, I'm not.
They knew. They saw you coming.
They saw me coming.
City's looked really good domestically lately. I think. I mean, I know that they got by skin of the teeth in terms of like the 1-0 win against Palace, but just generally the process looks good. Phil Foden, coming alive. Not a moment too soon, but this Leipzig team's been so good for quite a while now in the Bundesliga. I think if they drew anyone else besides City, they'd be a pretty popular, upset pick had they drawn, whether it be like Madrid or Liverpool, whoever, the other big fish. I think like plus 650 is actually not a terrible number, considering some of the kind of weird results we've seen out of City. But with the Leipzig future, I'm just gonna let that one ride. But if I were to make a bet on this one, it would be Leipzig on the money line here. BJ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Leipzig plus 1.5 at minus 125. It was a very, very interesting first leg. And if you just watched the first half, you'd be like, oh my gosh, City is so good. They just completely dominated RB Leipzig. They attempted one shot the entire half. Obviously, City scored in the first half, but the match completely flipped in the second half. So essentially what happened is that Leipzig was trying consistently to play out of the back, and it just wasn't working. City's press was thwarting any attempt they tried to play out of the back, and then one of their high turnovers was into the Mahrez goal. But then in the second half, Leipzig became very much more direct, and they really started to get at City over and over again. They outshot City in the second half, and eventually got the what I thought the well-deserved goal, and it ended up being a very even type match where City was really good in the first half, and then Leipzig was very good in the second. And I mean, this Leipzig team is obviously, I felt very good about them in the first leg. And after this, I don't see any reason why not to bet them again. I mentioned the stat beforehand, but a couple, last podcast, but since Marco Rose took over, second best expected goal differential throughout Europe's top 5 leagues outside of Barcelona, just plucking against, lower half of table La Liga teams. But yeah, I'm going to bet Leipzig here again at plus 1.5. I think City is overvalued, even if it is at home. Nkunku didn't play the full match in the last match against City, which I think is huge in this matchup to give Leipzig more attacking threats going forward. So yeah, I think Leipzig is absolutely live here to get through to the next round and give City a ton of problems yet again. And they're still a very, very good defensive team as well.
Anthony, are you jumping in these friendly waters?
I'm really torn. I show value on Leipzig again, which is to be expected. The first leg was relatively even. City was slightly better, which is about what I thought they would be. And I agree. I mean, it was a tale of two halves. The first half, BJ mentioned it, like the 7-1 shots. It wasn't that Leipzig only had one shot. The only shot they had came in stoppage time in the first half. So it was so bad. People were ridiculing me in my text messages with friends, like, I can't believe you made me bet on this team. What the hell? This team sucks. And then, the second half was a much more inspired effort. I do worry about them going on the road, though, and I think that's going to be a difficult challenge to try and, they won't get away with playing as bad as they did in the first half again. at that level. But I thought it was notable that even in the so-called dominant half, when Leipzig couldn't play out from the back and City was able to force high turnovers, they only managed, like 7 shots, none of which were particularly high quality. They do score, but it was like 0.657 XG. Like, it was not the typical City dominant attacking performance. And then we go to the weekend against Newcastle, same thing, like moseying along, not conceding anything. The only real chance they conceded was the Heinrich's chance one-on-one, and then the set piece itself. That was the goal. And then in the match against Newcastle, what did we see from City? They battened down the hatches defensively after that run of giving up goals. Newcastle could not create anything whatsoever. And then we went this weekend against Palace, and Palace did not register a shot on target. I know that's more of a Palace problem than a City problem, but it gets to the point of like Pep is making a clear, conscious decision to focus on defending and not concede goals at the risk of his attack being worse. And I think the market's still a little too high here at 3. So I like under. I'm betting under. Again, another under in the Champions League. We haven't had a lot of open matches in this knockout stage, but I think the market's just a little too high on these two defenses still, too low on the defenses, and the total was too high. So I'm going to take the under 3. I think Pep, if they get a lead, will be very difficult for them to break down. And I think we're going to see that happen. So I think it's a 1-0 win. And then the only thing that's scary is like if Leipzig does start committing numbers forward, there goes the door for Leipzig to give up another one. So that's the scary part. I don't see them getting blitzed though. Their defense is too good. And so under 3 is my bet for the second leg.
I think that's a good point that, if City does score first here, I mean, who's to say that Pep just doesn't say, let's just control the ball and let's just not let them have it and just put the clamps down, like we've seen him do time and time again throughout the Champions League. Another thing I'll mention is that, City only had 3 high turnovers against Leipzig, and they came all in the first half. So it was very, very difficult for them in the second half to press and keep Leipzig under wraps. So I agree with you that if City does score, I think they'll kind of just not really concede the ball, but they'll just kind of try to control possession and see this thing out. I don't see Pep trying to get into an end-to-end style match with Leipzig. I think that's a recipe for disaster for City.
Pep will do anything to make sure that he has game control. That's something you always have to know with City. And I know we all love to watch Haaland and bet City overs, but this will be the 4th straight under for me on the City's ends, I believe.